I'm here and I'm going to be having my meeting that we talked about. Or you can sit on my lap, okay? Okay, I'm ready. Do you hear this in the background? You
No,
don't?
no,
Okay, good. Should I start over?
if you want.
Okay.
Okay. Hi, my name is Ajay Kurian with NewCrits, and I'm here today with Pooneh Maghazehe. NewCrits is a global platform for virtual studio mentorship and community through interviews, texts, and more. We're here today to explore what we mean by critique or a crit and why they're so valuable. We're using these videos for everyone to get to know the people of NewCrits. So let's start. My first question is, are there any ways that you like to conduct critique? Does that follow in the tradition of critique that you grew up in, or did you have to find a different path?
My path was I sort of came into my own method in explaining how I like to imagine what the space of critique might look like. People have different ways of entering into that sort of conversation or territory. But for me, it's more about painting a picture. So typically, I just start out by telling everybody the critical space isn't much more than this opportunity where we're all in this car, we're all headed towards our own destinations, and it's almost as if we're on this road trip, and whoever's driving the car is the individual who's going to pick the detour that we will all get off at, and we will have a view. And the view is the view of the artist. It's just a chance to talk about what it's like to see and to integrate this idea of an altering point of view.
How does that shift when it's a one-on-one meeting?
When it's one-on-one, the conversation pretty quickly becomes very personal, and I'm able to say things in a much more pointed way.
Mhm.
I'm able to ask, once you're one-on-one, you're in a safe space that really is just about, it's controlled. It's you and the person and their intent. There becomes more of like an immediate microscope. And then the question really becomes like, what is the conversation we are meant to have with each other while we're here for this time?
What's the value in critique?
I think criticism is so personal, and it really depends on the individual. For me, the reason why I even decided to think about broadening my community and finding a place where many people could talk to me about my work had to do with just sort of having a witness, and there being not judgment on the individual, but really sort of taking account uh, of what's happening. And the other's mind, the mind of the person who's viewing the work, very different stories come from the work depending on the person who's seeing it. It creates a kaleidoscope of seeing
Mhm.
that uh, an artist, no matter how much they think they know about what is happening, are clueless about. So honestly, until someone says, "Oh, I thought about this story," or the unexpected always finds its way into feedback. Always.
Can you tell us about a project that changed its direction through conversations with other artists?
My answer is so simple. It's just it happens all the time. And yesterday I was on the phone with a friend, and you know I was looking out the window, and there's this pile that I'm trying to make something outside. And I was talking to her about it, and I said, "Oh yeah, I'm like making this, like, I think it's a pedestal." And she said, "Why is it a pedestal?" And that was it. That was it. And the work completely changed. From my perspective as an object maker, the distance between something being a pedestal and not being a pedestal, the object itself, that is profound. It completely upended my relationship to this thing that I thought I was doing.
At what point are you looking for feedback? Because that felt like it's a really crucial point where you're still available to sort of
Right.
upend your own work.
Right.
Are there points where it's more conducive or less conducive?
Um, there used to be a time when I had a lot of trouble allowing people into my space until I felt that there was like a certain I had reached some point in the work.
Mhm.
But what I find particularly helpful for me is having at least one thing in the studio that I understand and then letting anything else live in the space. Everything is up for negotiation, but that I am prepared with some understanding about what I think is happening. This way, I am less swept up in the remarks and able to sort of like, you know, able to have some kind of control variable, control some sort of base level of understanding that I think there might be about the work. And then this ricochets the conversation and feedback, but there's something there for me
Right.
to be with in order to get as much as I can get productively from what's happening in the
Right.
conversation. Yeah.
I feel like it's kind of as if, you know, you have a boat in the water and it's anchored, but the rope to the anchor is very long.
Yeah. Yes.
So there's
Yeah.
a lot of space to move around, but you're still anchored.
Yes. The way I think about it is having like a balloon and one string. And I'm kind of this balloon, but I need I just need to be on the ground with something. That way otherwise we all float away. I float away, the conversation floats away. I mean, I found for years that kept happening. I kept losing myself in these conversations that I found so helpful. But then I was like, where am I in this?
Do you think more in terms of the why or the how? And I guess you could divide those into like the why being more conceptually driven and the how being more materially driven.
Yeah. It's always the why. Like I have like a very strong relationship to materiality.
Yeah,
And
it's funny. I would have thought you would have said how.
no, I don't care, honestly. I might ask just because, you like talk shop. That's what happens sometimes. I'm more interested in a kind of transcendence and including the transcendence of materiality. So transcendence is not about how, it's about what happened on, this happening, this experience
I see.
and meaning making around it.
To follow that, are you driven more by the details or the big picture?
It's really always the big picture. I think about the big picture because there's like an acknowledgement of how much a work can hold.
Mhm.
And and so it's less about sort of measuring all the individual elements, but more about sort of making sense of, you know, what single thing you might be left with after you leave a work. And so that's why it's, for me, more about the vision that remains.
The last question,
Yeah.
where do you find inspiration?
I find inspiration everywhere. I mean, I found the last time I found inspiration, like my lawn chair was this old bamboo lawn chair was falling apart. It was going to go to the trash, and my partner chopped it up. And then I said, stop, save it. I'm inspired. Like, I don't know. I'm in my life just sort of noticing things. And the parts that come into relief are the parts that find their way into my studio. And I could list many things, but generally speaking, it's just my environment. It's really simplistic. I don't have a clever answer. I don't have a smart way of saying anything other than, it's just sort of like my whatever's around me is going to find its way into my studio.
Totally. I mean, I'm the same.
Yeah, it's not that complicated for me.
Thank you so much for doing this. I really
Yeah,
appreciate it.
that was really short and good and sweet.